Arthur Ray Black, United States Marine Corps, World War II. I interviewed Ray Black in Cincinnati, Ohio, December 10th, 2004. He was about 85, 86 years old. He lived till 2012, 93 years of age. He left this earth, but he left a great legacy for his family and for history's sake, folks. He was a sergeant with the 3rd Marine Division, 3rd Regiment, 3rd Battalion, 3rd Company on Iwo Jima, 1945, February 19th. 3rd Division was held in reserve and went in the second day. First waves of Marines went in on February 19th on D-Day. And it's been many years ago. I've been to Iwo Jima. I actually went there with the Marines in 2006. I walked the black sands of Iwo Jima with 60 pounds on my back to simulate what it would have felt like to have been a Marine that day, sinking into that black volcanic sand, rock, ash. Incredible island, 8.5 square miles, about the size of Manhattan, 2.5 miles wide. It's just tiny. It looks like a pork chop from the air. But anyways, Ray tells a great story of the rifle company he was with on Iwo Jima, and he also recites a poem that I like. I think it's called Father, I Will. So I invite you to watch Ray Black's story here on the Voices of History YouTube channel. I want to thank L.J. Wilson and Patrick Stillwell and John Penn. Thank you, gentlemen, for making it possible for others to hear Ray's story today. I went into my archives. This is one of my classic videos here. They don't get much better than this. So Ray, God bless you. Thank you for telling me your story. And thank you, gentlemen, for making it possible for many people to hear it around the world. How many of you have listened to Voices of History Radio? Raise your hand. How many? I've been sharing this. It's something that I'm very passionate about. I'm excited too, but I'm very passionate because we can hear these stories all day long, 24 hours a day. Now, I know you may be on overload, and maybe enough is enough as far as too many stories, but the thing is our children, our students, your children, your grandchildren, in the palm of their hands, they can download the apps on the Apple App Store and the Google Play Store. Type Voices of History Radio, download it. There's the download links are in the video description on this video too. But how many of you have listened to the station? You know, I've found it's kind of a lifestyle. I now go around the house, in the car, taking a shower, whatever. I got it on my iPhone, on my computer, and I love listening to these stories. It's comforting for me to listen to these stories, if that makes sense. It is. It's a great comfort to know that this living history is going out there on Voices of History Radio, KVOH. So I invite you to listen to this station. It's listener supported. It's there. Folks, take advantage of it. Get it into the hands of our kids, please. They need to have this living history at their fingertips, in the palm of their hands. Okay, and also I like truck drivers. The perfect platform for a truck driver as they're driving all day long. Someone staying at home, commuting to work. It just, I know it's more of a discipline to watch a video, but a lot of people like the audio format. So please share this station with others. And I'm going to leave my email address on the screen. I want to hear from you. If you've listened to the station, would you please email me, tell me what you think of it. Email address is alcapetto@icloud.com. I'll leave it on the screen to the end of this video. So I hope you will get in touch with me and let me know what you think of the radio station. So, all right, folks, if you'd like to become a sponsor of this YouTube channel, please, there's information in the video description on my website, larrycapetto.com. Click on Sponsor a Vet, and it will take you to a page with a bunch of pictures of veterans that I've interviewed. Just include their name in the sponsorship, and I'll get that up on this channel. I'll feature that story. And I'm just grateful for those of you who have sponsored. And I know a lot of you want to do it. Hey, it's all good, okay? No worries. And if you'd like to donate to my work, there's information in the comment section of this video. So I think I covered everything. Did I cover everything? Okay, I got everything covered. Okay, folks, sit back, relax, and enjoy this timeless classic story about the Battle of Iwo Jima, which led to the end of the war with Japan, World War II. And I've got many, many, many stories in my archives, and this is one of them. So subscribe to this channel, share this video with somebody else, and let's just keep this thing going, folks. Thank you, and God bless you. Which Marine division were you with?
The 3rd.
3rd. You a reserve unit?
Reserve?
Were you reserve?
No, I joined the Marine 3rd when it was formed in San Diego.
Okay.
And I stayed with it till the war was over. Just ask me what you want to know and I'll try my best to...
Yeah. But again, you were with the 3rd Marine Division.
The 3rd Marine Division.
What company or regiment were you with?
I was in the 3rd all the way. 3rd Division, 3rd Regiment, 3rd Battalion, 3rd Company,
Were you?
3rd Squad, 3rd Platoon.
What was your rank on Iwo Jima?
I was a sergeant.
Okay, so you were in charge of who?
I was in charge of a platoon.
Okay, so you were a rifle company.
Yes,
Platoon.
we were in combat
Okay, that's perfect.
infantry.
Did you go in on D-Day, February 19th?
I went in the 2nd day.
Okay. Can you tell me what you remember about the night before you went in, where you were, and what your thoughts were?
Well, the night before I went in, or in fact the day before I went in, I was aboard this troop ship.
Okay.
And the thing that I remember most about it is one of the Marines had been killed that day, and his father was the commander of the troop ship that I was on. And they brought him to this troop ship, and that night we had a funeral service for the commander's son, buried him at sea. That's the thing that I remember most. And then the next day, we turned around and I went in on the opposite side of the island from where the other Marines had gone in, where the mountainside was. I went in on the airstrip. It was their job to take the airstrips. There were 3 of them. I can't remember too much about that. I know one of them was under repair, and it was real rocky around there. We had a lot of fire from the enemy hidden around in rocks and little bunkers and so forth.
Do you remember you were on a troop ship before you went into shore?
What troop ship?
Were you on an LST or a troop ship? What were you on out in the sea?
Well, we was on a regular troop ship, as I remember. My battalion was on this ship, which probably about, let's see, 12, 36, 90, about 250 men on that one troop ship.
Did you get off of that ship onto smaller landing crafts?
We got on what they call an LCI,
Okay.
which is a landing craft infantry. The front drops down, you know, and you go in.
Well, what do you remember about the trip in that day to the beach on the LCI? Were they shooting at you before you landed?
What was I doing before landing?
Were the Japanese shooting at you?
No, before I landed. Oh yeah, as we went in, we got some flak out to sea, not very much, because we had some Sherman tanks that were taking it pretty heavy. That had come around the point between the hill and Suribachi, and most of the fire was directed at these tanks. They took a pretty heavy beating, if I recall. I get my battles of Guam and Bougainville and Guadalcanal confused to where I can't remember which one was which, you know.
But now you were a sergeant in charge of a platoon?
Yes.
How many men in a platoon?
Well, there's 12 men in a squad. I'm talking about infantry, not the help, the medics and all that. 12 men in a squad, 3 squads in a platoon,
About 36
3
men?
platoons in a company.
So what was your job on the beach, and what were your men doing?
Well, a man was just to take land. I mean, just to move forward, move them off of the airstrips and keep going as inland as far as we can. Got this big mountain between us and the other side of the hill where they're coming in on the other side, but I'll tell you this, Iwo Jima was the lousiest, worst piece of crap that anybody ever had, because it was nothing but volcanic ash. You couldn't keep your rifle to where it would work. All that ash would blow down in your mechanism, you know. You had time firing, you never know where you're going to fire or not, and if you laid down at night, your back burned up and your belly froze. It's that kind of a situation, you know.
Did it smell?
Did the island stink of sulfur, or what did the smell? Some of the guys said that.
I didn't have any time to sniff around. I can't remember whether there was an odor there or not, but if it was from cadavers, you know.
What do you remember about just the landing on the beach, and were some of your men hit then and wounded, or what? What happened?
I don't recall any of my men hit when we landed, because we landed in further this time than any island I'd landed on. It was in low tide, and our LCI was able to go right up on the beach on Bougainville and Guam. It landed out in the water, and we had to go through but this one, we landed up on the beach and ran into security, you know, and cover. So I don't recall that we lost any right then.
As you went inland, then what happened? I mean, the Japanese were dug into the island.
Well, they were after the first day, they were pretty well broken up, but we had guys coming across the hill with flamethrowers and so forth. They were protecting us before the Japs could get down to us very much. So frankly, we didn't get as heavy a fire as everyone else did, but we kept taking the airstrips and going forward. And about the worst thing I remember is a daggone Japanese plane came in to strafe or were going to crash into one of the ships out there, and he missed it. And here he comes in, and we run like hell to get out of the way because he's tumbling like mad up that island, you know. Things like that are embedded in my mind, but it has to be something fantastic before I can remember it.
Well, what about combat itself? I mean, you're a sergeant of a platoon of men, riflemen. Tell me about some of the combat on the island.
Well, like I say, we're trying to move along, and we're getting sniper fire. The airstrips, there's 3 of them. One of them is inoperable, under repair. But close to the foot of the mountain was hilly sections. The Japs had dug into these little holes, you know, and they were picking us off. We had a hard time finding them, but they could find us because we're in the open, you see. And if it hadn't been for guys like Woody here coming up the flanks and all with their flamethrowers, we would have had trouble. But we didn't lose a lot of men from real combat. We were pretty fortunate there because they were too busy at other sections of the island to try to protect an airstrip that is already lost, you know.
Did your men follow you? I mean, you led them into the assault? I mean, they followed you, you gave orders to them?
Oh, yeah.
What kind of orders would you give them? What did you tell them to do?
Well, if I saw there was a flank over here with a space that was not covered, I'd send some of the men over there, and if one of our men was wounded, I'd call for a medic. I went into the 3rd on the day it was formed. I was one of the very, very few that was there till the war was over. So they would not, you know, you've heard that in the service, after you're so long, you get what they call credit, and you after so many credit numbers.
Points?
Points.
Yeah.
I never could have that because I was a non-commissioned officer, a leader that they didn't have any, and they wouldn't let me go. I had 2 or 3 times enough points to come home, but they wouldn't let me because they had no NCOs, and I stayed till the end. But I would give the normal orders that my lieutenant passed down to me, you know. If I got no orders and I found orders had to be given to go over there and cover that flank, or go take a run up this point and take that little area up there and guard our flank over here. That's the kind of orders you would give, you see.
So were your men in danger when you gave orders? I mean, did they have to have covering fire as they would do these things? Or?
You're in danger every minute of every hour of every day on Iwo Jima till it's over. And there never was an hour that you felt like that you could relax until it got so daggone pitch black that nobody could see you, you know. And then you rested some.
Did they look to you for leadership? Obviously, they had their confidence in you. You know, you were.
Well, yeah, most of the time, these kids are always replacement. When I left Bougainville, they replaced my company with new recruits. When we left Guadalcanal, the island was secured, but we did mop-up duty, what they call. I lost men there. They replaced with recruits. When I left Guam, all the time I've got new men, and all they are PFCs and maybe a corporal or two. And all they know to do is what they've been taught to do as a Marine, is follow orders. And that's what I did of my superior, you see.
Do you remember the flag raising on Iwo Jima?
Absolutely.
Tell me what you remember about that.
We had our own radios, and I don't think anybody on Iwo Jima will ever forget that. On my platoon radio came from company, which came down from battalion, which came down from regiment on up. Suribachi, Suribachi. And everybody looked at Suribachi. We saw the flag go up that day, and man, that's a feeling you never forget. Now, I don't know whether we saw it go up the first time or second time. It's so far away, we never knew, but it went up. And like I say, in that thing there, I often wondered what the Japs thought when they saw that flag go up, you know. How I felt if I saw that daggone rising sun go up.
Well, there was a lot of fighting after that flag went up, but still, that was a boost for your morale, probably.
Oh, yeah. Well, you see, these guys had dug in. I've never been able to understand why they didn't just stop the war before Iwo Jima and drop the atomic bomb on Iwo Jima and Okinawa, two lousy pieces of land that would have sent the message on to Japan and saved thousands and thousands of men, you know. Because at that time, if anyone remember any of the old salts that was around there, we had a typhoon just off of Okinawa that we lost as many ships in that typhoon and men as we lost in several of those invasions. A terrible, terrible typhoon that blew ships around like matchboxes.
What do you think was the worst thing you saw on Iwo Jima? What was the hardest thing for you?
The hardest thing for me was seeing a couple of my men just absolutely blown apart because a shell just hit them direct practically. I'd never seen anything like that. I'd seen a lot that were killed with rifle fire, but I never seen anyone that was hit by a mortar. And that is one thing that stayed with me as much as anything. I'm going nuts here thinking about this thing. I didn't know that I was going to get so involved, you know. Well, 60 years is a long time.
It is. Was it hard for you to not think about the war after the war, or did you come home with memories, nightmares? Some of the guys have had nightmares. I mean, did that bother you back then?
For quite some time, yes. No way you can dismiss something like that. You see, I never seemed to have any breaks at all. When the war was over and I wanted to come home, they told me that they had a place on a plane, but I couldn't take my duffel bag. But I could go, and they would send my duffel bag to me later. I got on this plane and I landed in Hawaii, and there some commander, some high-ranking officer kicked me off, and I had to come the rest of the way by ship, which I was sick of ships, you know, and it never seemed to move. And I was so busy getting home. To this day, I haven't got my duffel bag, and I had all kinds of Japanese yens and pistols and souvenirs in that thing, but some quartermaster got rich off of Marines' duffel bags, I'm sure. I've thought about that so many times. I'd love to have those memories. But my head was like that duffel bag. It was full of tokens and so forth. My head was full of memories forever until I got back in civilian life enough to push it aside.
A lot of the men that I've spoke with have never talked about their experiences, and I find that real common among them. Most of them are in their 80s like yourself.
Yeah.
And I think they sense the urgency of the times that they want to talk or they need to talk about
Yeah.
it. And, so that's why I ask you that. Do you think that society is forgetting what happened in World War II?
I think probably they are. Now, I've never talked about what we're talking about here. I've talked about we were on Iwo Jima or this, that, and the other. But to details, I've never gone into this. I've got a son that was on Vietnam, and I can't get him to say a word about Vietnam. So it's not a pleasant conversation.
No. And I'm not here to try to pull anything out that you don't want to talk about. So don't feel like you have to. But
Yeah.
Just generally the history of what happened there. Some comments about the combat. And since you were a sergeant, haven't interviewed that many non-commissioned officers in any war. So it's interesting to me that you were in charge of a platoon of men, and you were their leader. They looked up to you. So for faith, for courage, for whatever. So that sounds to me like you were a good leader of your men. Tell me about the
You don't think of a leadership. I mean, you're a zombie.
Yeah.
You don't think about, I'm a leader, I got to do this. You do what you're told, and that's the thing about the Japanese. They never, if they didn't have any leaders, they were nothing.
Yeah.
They were absolutely nothing.
The Germans were the same way.
Yeah. But my Iwo Jima was my final combat, but it was not my worst by far.
Well, just combat in general. Tell me about the bond that forms between.
Tell you about what?
The bond, the camaraderie that forms between men that are in combat. I've heard that there's a bond. There's between each other.
Yeah. Well, I'm not familiar with that. You respected, and you had orders, and they obeyed, and you respected them for their work. But I never had any men long enough to develop a bond.
I understand that. Yeah.
I had one man that stayed with me the whole time, and he was from Huntington, West Virginia, and he was a football coach by the name of Bob Singh. Bob died about 3 years ago, but he came into my outfit with a football under his arm. And he was about the best friend that I ever developed. And I never ran across too much camaraderie.
Well, I'm going to ask you another question. I've asked all the veterans this, but being a World War II veteran and society today, what does freedom mean to you, and the price for freedom? Do you have any comments on that?
Freedom?
Yeah, because you guys sacrificed your lives, and a lot of them didn't come back. So, as an American, what does freedom mean to you?
Can I tell it? I'm an amateur poet.
Yeah, tell it to me in a poem.
Can I tell it to you in poetry? I stood one day in Arlington beneath the red, white, and blue, and I thought I could see my comrades marching in cadence, 2 by 2. And I wondered what they would say if they could speak beyond the grave. Was it really worth it yesterday? Do you appreciate what we gave? Their wandering souls look upon this land, and they wonder what it's like today. Like an hourglass, slowly dripping sand, is freedom slowly slipping away? Well, to all you patriots in the sky who were here so long ago, Old Glory is still waving high, and you're the ones who made her so. That's freedom to me.
That's beautiful.
Well, thank you.
Did you write that?
Yeah.
Have you heard that before?
No one ever heard it before except around here when it's in our local echo or something. I got books of poetry like that, of
That's
patriotic stuff.
That was great.
Mm-hmm.
That was really good, and that sums it up right there.
Yeah.
Have you ever had an opportunity to talk to school kids or younger people?
Got a big get well card the other day from kids over at Princeton, when you go talk to these kids today and you look at them and you think of America, all is well. These kids are fantastic. I've been over to Princeton and talked to them. I've been out here to Hamilton. People in Hamilton sent me an honorary graduation, diploma. They wanted me to be in their graduation class. Yes, I've gone and talked to them, but I haven't talked to them stuff like I've talked to them at Poetry in America, you know.
So I think a lot of kids today don't realize the sacrifices that were made for the freedoms that we have today. You know, I think about that. And I try to talk to kids when I can about this project because I think they need to know of what's happened. And your generation is dying at a rate of 1,500 per day, they say.
Yeah.
And pretty soon, you know, who's going to tell the story? So that's one of the reasons I'm doing this work. And secondly, to share it with our younger generation. And,
well, these kids, you hear every once in a while that this generation is going to hell, you know. Ain't so. They're such wonderful people.
I agree with you.
And I appreciate them and I respect them, and our world is in good hands.
Do you have any other thoughts about Iwo Jima that maybe I didn't ask you? Is there anything that comes to mind, or has he talked about anything that maybe you might recall that?
I never gone into details with him. I go to highlight.
Maybe you've heard more than he's ever told.
Yeah.
I haven't heard much about it.
Yeah. No, I just know that the night before, the day before, when we were there on the ship and we could see everything going on, still we're bombing, and knowing the next day that you're going to hit all that, you know, it's a kind of a nerve-wracking situation. But by that time I was kind of used to it. We didn't expect this on Iwo Jima at all, not at all, not in our wildest dreams did we think Iwo Jima would be anything but a powder puff, you know. And it turned out to be one of our worst. But having been on Bougainville and Guam, did mop-up duty on Guadalcanal. That's the meanest place that I was on.
Is that right?
Guadalcanal. Mm-hmm. Tell you a little bit of humor about the Japs.
Yeah.
We set up the first outdoor movies, you know, started, I think, overseas. We put up a big sheet and they'd have a camera and they would show us movies, and we'd take an old log or a box and sit out there in the coconut grove and watch a movie. Well, one night they're showing something like, I don't know, Wake Island or something, and at one point the Japs were just about to annihilate us. And all of a sudden, Banzai, Banzai, and two Japs have been sitting over here watching the movie. They'd slipped in, you know. Well, they spent the night in the compound, but they got all excited. They thought they were winning the war. That's funny how something like that will come back to your mind, you know.
That's good. That's good.
Hey, that's about all I know to tell you, son.
I think you've told me enough. I think I had one more question. Oh, well, just the strategic importance of Iwo Jima. Why did we need Iwo Jima? Why did we have to take that island?
I never know to this day, except it had an airstrip. You see, we had planes leaving Guam or other islands, and they're going in and they're bombing the mainland, and they're getting shot up, and they're hopping their way back, trying to make it back, and they've left to land somewhere. And those islands became a haven of landing for them instead of the water. So a lot of crippled ships landed on Iwo on their way back to wherever they came from, having been shot up on the mainland. But when that war was over, I was aboard ship one more time, getting ready to sail for Japanese mainland. And if you ever tell me that we shouldn't have dropped that bomb, I got something to say to you, because I wouldn't be here today.
Can you do me one more thing? I've asked all the men to do this. Can I get you to do a salute for me?
No.
No?
I can't salute with my right hand here, and I'm not going to salute with my left
I
hand.
forgot about that. Oh, come on. You're a Marine. You know, I forgot.
No, that hurts too much.
Don't do it. I'm just kidding. I forgot. And you're right. You don't want to use your left hand.
Yeah.
Now, I can, through photography, switch it and make it look
Yeah.
like your left is your right. But if you're not comfortable, that's okay.
I would like to give you a good old Marine salute, so I'll give you a left hand salute.
You want to do one? Okay, do it into the camera, though. Hold on.
There's
I can reverse it. I'm serious. Do one into the camera. Okay. That's good.
there's
Forgot about his right arm.
you get to talking about these veterans. I've seen them sitting down on the sidewalk with no legs, one-armed man trying to salute with his left hand, all kinds of.
Well, I asked a couple of guys yesterday, and they won't salute without cover. So
Yeah.
it's like, well, okay. But hey,
Yeah, well,
who's this?
that's me. You know,
You haven't changed at all.
that's a cocky old hillbilly that thinks he's going to win the war there. Look how I've got my cap. I hate that. I hate that picture.
Do you? Well, can I have it?
I'm going to, if I made a copy of it, could you make a copy off of a copy?
Well, here's what I'm going to ask you about. Ask you another question. Why did you survive? A lot of guys didn't come back. Why do you think you survived?
Ask him. He took care of me all the way. I was never, I'll tell you one more poem.
Do. I want to hear it.
Yes, Father, I Will is the name of it. But before I get to that, after I got out of boot camp, I did guard duty in Washington, D.C. One time they took me to Bethesda Naval Hospital and that put me outside the door, and before my commander, my guard leader left, he said, the President of the United States is inside this room here. After a while, an Army captain came out and said, the President wants to talk to you. He had heard that there was a lowly Marine out there from wherever. And I said, I can't leave my post, sir. And he said, when the President calls, you go. I'll take care of your post for you. And I go in, and President Roosevelt wanted to know about the hills of Kentucky, the coal mines, the CCC camps that he started, the WPA works that he started and all that. And I had quite a conversation with the President of the United States sitting there with a beach towel over his lap, getting ultraviolet rays from the sun for his infantile paralysis. Just thought of that, thought I would throw it in.
That's great.
And after that, I started thinking a little bit about religion. And one day on the island of Bougainville, I saw the Catholic chaplain, and I told him that I'd like to be baptized. And I needed it. And here's my poem. In a foxhole in 1943, on the island of Bougainville, the priest said, Ray, will you love and obey our Lord? And I said, yes, Father, I will. Father Kemper baptized me with rainwater that night with the enemy just over the hill. But I felt like shouting with all my might when I said, yes, Father, I will. I'll never forget that monsoon night. I was afraid, homesick, without a dream. But I felt that I found all that I'd lost when Father baptized this Marine. Now, Lord, I've not kept that promise I made. I have sinned, and so often I've lied. Sometimes I've left you, and sometimes I've stayed. I've just always come in and gone out with the tide. So help me to turn my wrongs into right and walk up to your altar and kneel and renew that promise I made that night when I said, yes, Father, I will. I think that's the reason that I came back alive. There you go. That answers your question on that. Okay?
I hope you have this stuff written down. Does he have this written down?
I got books of it.
Oh, man. That's good.
What's the one you wrote about the officer that was just killed, the football player, Pat, what's his name?
Oh, yeah, Pat Tillman that died, that was killed here a while back. You remember the football player?
In Iraq?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I don't know of him.
Well, about 8 months ago, Pat Tillman was a wealthy pro football player, and he left the football to go to Iraq, and he was killed. And I wrote this little article. America weeps again today, as she had so many times before. We have so many debts to pay to those who guards America's shore. So today we salute Pat Tillman. He gave America all his worth. They're playing taps for Pat in heaven while they're playing reveille for Pat in heaven as we play taps for him on earth.
I remember that now. I remember that story.
Oh well.
Hey, one more question. This is the last one.
You said one more question an hour
I
ago.
promise. This is it. One more after this. No, this is it. just young people in battle and combat sometimes think they're invincible, like they can never be killed. Did you feel that, or did you see that? I mean, was that the attitude of some of your men that, you know, I'm invincible? Did you
Well,
see that,
not
or-
necessarily. We were trained as Marines, and I'll have to say, when you're trained as a Marine, you go do your duty, because they take you down to you're lower than any snake ever crawl, and they build you up till you got pride, and you go do your job. I saw many Marines who were brave, but I never saw any that I thought were invincible. There are no atheists on the battlefield, buddy. They did their duty, what they were trained to do, and but they sure would run like hell to get behind a rock too if there's machine gun fire chasing them. So cockiness and that kind of stuff I never ran across it. I was scared from the moment I went overseas to the moment I came back. So
Tell
that's
about your first day in the Marines, Dad.
what?
Tell about your first day in the Marines.
Oh, this is how the Marines will treat you. I came from the hills of Kentucky, and I boarded a train in Hazard, Kentucky, and we go to Paris Island, South Carolina. And from then on, you are a snake. You are the lowest creature that ever crept.
Is that because you're from Kentucky?
No, that's just because they were going to make a Marine out of me.
Okay.
But I was all dressed up, and you wouldn't know what this is, but I had on what we call a zoot suit with a reed pleat, and a buff cuff, and a big chain that came down, you know, and a draped coat, and a crazy hat. And I got off that daggone train, and his sergeant called us to line up out there, you know, and here's all these guys with jeans and everything on, and here I am with this zoot suit. Freaky looking as hell, you know. And this sergeant, he came by and he looked at me, and he looked at me, and he said, "What in the hell are you?" Well, I started to say something to him, and he said, "You're gonna knock your teeth." Well, he took me down right there. He said, "You repeat after me. I'm a horse's ass at Yemassee. I'm the biggest ass you'll ever see." Well, I'm a horse's ass. Louder. He had me going up and down through all those troops shouting, "I'm a horse's ass from Yemassee, the biggest ass you'll ever see." That's the way I started my pompous life in the Marine Corps.
That's a great story.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
And when I got out, they gave me $108.20 and a ticket home. There you are. By that time, I'd paid for my bucket.
Well, you weren't in it for the money, were you?
No. When you go in the Marine Corps, they give you a big galvanized 2-gallon bucket. They put shoe polish, toothpaste, everything that you'll need down in that bucket. And they took so much a month to pay for that bucket. And it was an old saying, "How long you been in the Marine Corps?" "Well, I don't have my bucket paid for yet." So, hey, does that do it?
Yeah, I'm done with the questions, but if it's okay with